do under the law is fire a teacher for not being a snitch. And I just don't think teachers should be gender police. Humble point of view. And I think this issue's gotten weaponized, and our gay community's been demonized.
We begin tonight at 5 with breaking news. This afternoon, the Supreme Court temporarily blocking a California law that prevents schools from requiring teachers to notify parents if a student changes their gender identity at school. The emergency appeal was filed by a conservative legal group representing religious parents and educators. They argue schools kept families in the dark and supported students' social transitions without parental consent. California officials say the law protects student privacy.
Tonight, the U.S. Supreme Court just cleared the way for California schools to tell parents if their children identify as transgender without getting the student's approval.
The process is known as parental notification. For now, the High Court's decision blocks a state law that bans automatic parental notification requirements if students change their pronouns or gender expression at school. Religious parents and educators challenged the law, but the state argued that students have the right to privacy about their gender expression, especially if they fear rejection from their families.
The High Court sided with the parents and reinstated a order while this case continues to play out. We have reached out to the Newsom administration for comment and have yet to hear back.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Oh, sorry about that. So if you can hear me, please put a 1 in the chat. I wanted to talk about a recent Supreme Court ruling where they've blocked California from continuing to implement these laws that allow teachers to keep parents in the dark when their kids decide or they are persuaded to change their pronouns, to change their name, to start identifying as the opposite sex. You would think parents would be informed about those sort of things, but no. Thank you guys. Thanks for letting me know. Glad you can hear me. California believes it's outing these students. And, you know, it is claimed that these policies that were implemented were there to protect trans kids, those who identify as trans, from potential abuse and things like that. But bear in mind, simply acknowledging the biological sex of your child is considered abuse to some of these people. So I'm glad we've got this Supreme Court ruling, and the Supreme Court has a lot of work to do in deciding these cases. I did a story the other day about Maine, and there was a parent, a mother fighting for her daughter who was given a new name and a new pronouns and all of this. And she was not informed. She took the school to court, or the school district, and it was gone all the way to the Supreme Court now. So they're deciding a lot of cases. We've got Massachusetts, then California, I believe it's Maine as well. So a lot is being decided, and it looks like things are working, in the favor of those who apply common sense. So that's good to hear. Quickly though, from my last live, I did a story about Dr. P, a woman who went to the police in the UK and was basically told, they asked her why she was being doxxed and harassed online, like what caused this, so to speak. And she said that, well, for simply believing a man cannot be a woman, that's why I'm now facing online harassment. And the police officer proceeded to tell her that that's, transphobic, that's bigotry. How dare you? And when I did that story, I was 100% being facetious when I was mentioning the race of this woman. It's a Black woman, went to the police station. And anyone who knows, who's been on this channel for a while now, knows I usually am facetious when I'm mentioning if it happens to be a Black woman, because I'm saying, these people put the rules out there. They call people like me disenfranchised, and, how I have to have an allyship with men who identify as women because we're all disenfranchised. But then look how they treat a Black woman who comes to them for help. So simply pointing out the hypocrisy. Obviously, anybody who watches any of my videos, I've featured women of different races, and definitely believe that all women should be protected from this insanity, regardless of race. So I just wanted to clear that up before anybody got the wrong idea. I speak out against race baiting, and I speak out against people who tell me that I have to align myself with AGPs because I'm a Black woman. I speak out against that, and I obviously call them out for their racism as well. So just wanted to clear that up before we move on. So let's take a look at this story over in California. A lot has been going on in the fight for common sense, in the fight for sanity. So this is a little bit about the Supreme Court ruling. So the court, it was a 6-3 decision on ideological lines, allowed a federal judge's ruling in favor of parents who opposed the policy on religious grounds to go into effect. And this was the San Francisco-based 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that had put the judge's decision on hold pending further litigation. So they've basically reinstated this, or put the policy on hold. They're not allowed to continue this policy while parents are, challenging such laws. And it just happened to be a religious group that was challenging these laws. But obviously, this is just something that every parent is going to be concerned about. Nobody wants a school deciding what's best for their child and keeping them in the dark when it comes to these matters. And, I've done stories where they've basically, these schools have shown that they're willing to sow the seed in the minds of children of this, idea that they're born in the wrong body. And, you can change your pronouns if you want to. Maybe we can give you a more masculine name. Who sows these thoughts in the minds of these children, of these students, and puts them on a path where they're doubting who they are biologically, which is insane. So the court's ruling focused on the parents' claim that their rights under the Free Exercise Clause of the Constitution's First Amendment were violated. The court also said they have valid parental rights claims under the Constitution's 14th Amendment. And remember, this mother who's fighting in Maine for this very same thing, the lawyer is arguing that this is a violation of the 14th Amendment of her constitutional rights. The court did not grant a similar request made by teachers who object to the policy. We conclude that the parents who seek religious exemptions are likely to succeed on the merits of their Free Exercise Clause claim, the court said in an unsigned opinion. The parents who assert a free exercise claim have sincere religious beliefs about sex and gender, and they feel a religious obligation to raise their children in accordance with those beliefs. So in this case, it's more on the grounds of exercising one's religious beliefs, the right to exercise their religion. But we know this is a common sense issue. It's as simple as that. And then we have headlines like this. Yep, amen to that. Protect children, #1. So Supreme Court allows California teachers to out trans students. These are the sort of headlines that are being circulated. Obviously, this is a very pro-LGBTQ type publication. And then we have CTV. They had their own strange headline, and they were called out for it. Headlines like this one. US Supreme Court blocks California policies intended to protect transgender students. So that's their take on it, that this is an attack on schools and their policies that are implemented to protect children who have a gender identity. When really what we're talking about is the state interfering with the parents' rights to protect their children. That's what we're talking about here. And then I've got an insane video to show you that went down when all of this was going on in California, involving Beth Bourne, who's been very vocal in the fight to protect women's sports and women's spaces over in California specifically, everywhere, but, you know, in particular, because she's from California. And she just gets right into the thick of things. She's very brave, very courageous, and, you know, she's not intimidated by these people. But these activists, they definitely try to intimidate her. And she recently was threatened. And it was very, very disturbing to see. So we'll take a look at that in a moment. And then Billboard Chris, this was his brilliant response. "You are such a hideous organization." Headline should read, Supreme Court blocks California policy which prevents parents from protecting their kids. Exactly. And Jennifer had this to say about Gavin Newsom's take on the whole thing. "Telling parents what is happening in school with their kids is not snitching, Gavin. This governor is anti-parent, anti-child, anti-family." Then we had Scott Wiener reacting to the news. And we know this guy doesn't know what a woman is. Tish Hyman confronted him. And I think he's one of the reasons why she's now running for mayor, because she's just like, I can't rely on any of these politicians. He had this to say, forcing teachers to out LGBTQ students to their parents puts kids' lives at risk. Some will die. Some will get kicked out and become homeless. Some will be sent to conversion therapy. The choice to come out to one's parents belongs only to the kid and is no one else's damn business. Wow. You see how hyperbolic they are with these things? This is endangering their lives and all of this business. Absolutely ridiculous. They are literally pretending that the parents are going to kill their children. This is so sick. Yes, absolutely ridiculous. And of course, when they have to be so dramatic, you know that they don't have a leg to stand on. And this whole movement is based on using that sort of manipulation, telling parents, you know, would you rather have a son? This is when they're talking about their female child, their daughter. They say, would you rather have a son or an unalived daughter, an unalived child? This is what it's based on. They call these treatments life-saving. And it's all based on a lie, as far as I'm concerned. No one has ever needed their hard drive checked more than this man. And just some more comments here. Social transitioning is not private. Just checking you could see that. It's a highly public psychosocial intervention. Classmates, faculty, staff, and even parents who volunteer at the school will know a child is using opposite sex facilities like locker rooms. Think through what a public secret like this does to a community, including the negative impact on the child. It forces everyone who comes into contact with it to participate in maintaining a secret. The school then keeps double books. And now the child is actively hiding something from their parents that perhaps hundreds of people already know. As absolutely unacceptable. And it is the G word. It's a prerequisite for the G word because, it involves encouraging a child to keep a secret from their parents. And Jennifer said, I can't tell you how creepy it is to watch these old men tell children to keep secrets from their parents. Luckily, the Supreme Court stepped in as a blocker and says you can't do this to kids and hide it from their parents. You see it, right? You see the creepiness. Yep, absolutely. So that's where we're at now with this whole situation. So it's good news. But of course, there were people having complete meltdowns about this. And I believe her name is Helen. I'm going to show you a video from Helen who explains why parents who want to transition their kids, they have such a vested interest in keeping this whole thing going. Because if it isn't kept going, they're going to have to face the fact that, they're going to have to face up to what they have done to their child. And they don't want to do that under no circumstances. And they have to believe that they're fighting in their mind for the greater good. So they're going to keep fighting this, which is very, very disturbing, but that's where we're at. So just to warn you, this is Beth Bourne. She is over in California. And, I really pray for her safety, that she continues to be protected. She deserves to be protected. But take a look at this.
It's not hatred. You guys, it's not hatred to tell a child that they can grow up to be healthy and whole. How much money does a surgeon makes off of giving a girl top surgery? Kaiser Permanente charges only $100 copay, and the surgeon makes $25,000. I was approved for a phalloplasty in 2 appointments over Zoom. My doctor told me I could have a fake penis that would allow me to either pee standing up or to have penetrative sex, but not both. Do you think your transgender child might one day have top surgery and a phalloplasty? Is that something you would allow them to have? They make a phalloplasty out of the skin tissue on your thigh or your forearm. It's like a skin sausage. It's a fake penis. $130,000. I'm gonna hunt you down and fucking kill you. Wait, you can't say that. You can't tell somebody you're gonna kill them. You can't say that to somebody.
So you saw there, very, very disturbing indeed. And this woman has been identified. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Soulless creatures, they abuse the innocent. Yep. So this person has been identified. This is a woman who began transitioning her daughter, I believe from the age of 15. Her daughter is now 18 and identifies as a man. So the post-millennial, they shed more light into this deranged individual, basically. And Beth was threatened there. If you didn't hear what she was saying, she said, I'm going to, effing unalive you. I'm going to hunt you down and all of that sort of crazy talk. Let's see if you can see this. I'm just sharing this with you guys. Post-millennial wrote about this individual. Okay, good. You can see it now. So we have a UCSF clinic director threatens to unalive a female protester at the California Dem convention. At the University of California, San Francisco administrative director has been identified. as a transgender activist who threatened to unalive a woman at the California Democratic Party state convention. She said, "I'm going to hunt you down and effing kill you." Madeline Mann, an administrative director of clinical and translational science training at UCSF, said to Beth Bourne before shoving her and fleeing the scene in a video that has since been viewed hundreds of thousands of times on social media. So this was back in February 21, in the lobby of the Moscow Center in San Francisco, where the California Democratic Party was holding its state convention. Oh, okay, so you can imagine her response now to the Supreme Court blocking these policies at the moment. And this is what she was so offended by. Yeah, absolutely. B-Flower, she needs to be charged. 100% agree there. So Beth was simply asking her, how much money does a surgeon make off giving a girl a top surgery? Miss Bourne said in the selfie-style video, as the pro-trans activist stood beside her, Kaiser Permanente charges only a $100 copay, and the surgeon makes $25,000. I was approved for a phalloplasty in 2 appointments over Zoom, she continued. You know, they make a phalloplasty out of the skin tissue on your thigh and forearm. It's like a skin sausage. It's a fake penis. $130,000. Miss Mann stood silently at first, then she leaned into Miss Bourne's ear and uttered the death threat before shoving her away and storming off, the video shows. So, you know, this is a very hard truth for this parent to face. You're allowing your child to be put into a system where these, you know, so-called surgeons stand to make a lot of money. You're allowing your child to be put into a system where they become a lifelong patient. And, you know, I hope this individual hasn't gone through all of that surgery, because it is very horrific. They remove a chunk of skin from your arm, which, if you see the images, looks very, very unpleasant indeed. And they use that to make a fake penis. It's absolutely horrific. The surgery for the females who want to transition into being male. It's mutilation. There's just no other word for it. 100% mutilation. Yep. CW, they are creating lifelong patients with surgical wound. Yep, it's a surgical wound that are at risk of infection. Sepsis kills more people than cancer. Wow. They have to keep it, you know, for the males, they've got to keep the wound open. And they have the nerve to refer to that as a vagina. It's absolute delusion. So I wanted to give you a little insight into, you know, why do these parents go all in? Why don't they ever just reassess and say, you know what, maybe this isn't the right path for our children to go down? And they're willing to make threats towards people to defend their cause. They're willing to risk it all to defend their cause, because, yeah, this woman could very well end up getting arrested, as she should. They've got professional jobs, but they're willing to throw it all away to maintain this ideology. So why is that? So Helen here, Helen Joyce, I believe she's from Sex Matters, is giving some insight into this.
The people who can't move on this.
Let's just start that again.
There's a lot of people who can't move on this, because that's the people who've transitioned their own children. So those people are going to be like, you know, the Japanese soldiers who were on Pacific Islands and didn't know the war was over.
Right.
They've got to fight forever. This is another reason why this is the worst social contagion that we'll ever have experienced. A lot of people have done the worst thing that you could do, which is to harm their children irrevocably because of it. Those people will have to believe that they did the right thing for the rest of their lives, for their own sanity and for their own self-respect. So they'll still be fighting. And each one of those people destroys entire organizations and entire friendship groups. Like, I've lost count of the number of times that somebody has said to me of a specific organization that has got turned upside down on this. Oh, the deputy director has a trans child, or, you know, oh, the journalist on that paper who does special investigations has a trans child, or whatever. The entire organization gets paralyzed by that one person. And it may not even be widely known at the organization that they have a trans child, but it will come out. Like, people will have sort of said it quietly, and now you can't talk truth in front of that person, and you know you can't. Because what you're saying is, you as a parent have done a truly, like, human rights abuse level of awful thing to your child that cannot be fixed. There are specific individuals who are really actively against women's rights here, and it's not known why they are, but I happen to know through the back channels that it's because they've trans their child. And so those people will do anything for the entire rest of their lives to destroy me and people like me, because people like me are a standing reproach to them. I don't want to be. I'm not talking directly to them. I don't spend my time bitching about them. But the fact is that just simply by saying we will never accept natal males in women's spaces, well, it's their son that we're talking about. And they've told their son that he can get himself sterilised and destroy his sexual function, and women will accept him as a woman. And if we don't, there's no way back for them and their child. They've sold their child a bill of goods that they can't deliver on, and I'm the one who has to be bullied to try to force me to deliver on it. So those people are going to be the people who will keep this bloody movement going, I'm sorry to say, because they've everything to lose. And it's a fight to the death as far as they're concerned.
Wow. And it's also, you know, it makes people who acknowledge reality a scapegoat. We can just focus our attention on the bigots and the phobes of various kinds. And it gives them, it distracts them from what is being done to them, what's being done to their child, what they've allowed to be done to their child. So yeah, very, very wise words there from Helen, as per usual. And it gives you a bit of insight into why, you know, that woman reacted the way she did. The truth hurts. And if you're telling your child that they can identify as the opposite sex, you are selling your child a lie. And it's one thing to do that, but it's another thing to encourage them down the path where they're going to permanently alter their bodies or even ruin their, you know, sexual function in the future and face health complications in the future, bone density issues, making themselves more prone to fractures and things like that, mental health issues, increasing the host of issues that they were already dealing with. And then we have that Wiener guy who's calling counseling and, you know, therapy, conversion therapy, when really that should be the course of action before you start mutilating the child, for goodness sake. And someone asked, has anybody actually faced any justice? Daryl asked that. Well, we have the Fox Varian case recently, where a surgeon and a psychiatrist were found to be liable for medical malpractice, and there was a settlement. So she received a settlement because ultimately, I believe it was a jury case, and the jury, you know, it was decided that they didn't even try alternatives before going down the path of permanently altering this young woman's body. At 16, this child, she was given a double mastectomy. So before you start going down that route, they didn't even offer, okay, maybe you could do with some psychotherapy, counseling. Maybe we can help with the depression that you're suffering from first, rather than making all these empty promises by saying, well, if you have this double mastectomy, if you go on these hormones, then these problems are going to go away, which is, you know, a lot of kids have been lied to in that regard. So, you know, she did receive a $2 million settlement. And as far as I'm aware, that's the only case I can think of. But because of that case, these hospitals and these organizations that previously approved these procedures for minors are now backtracking, because essentially the floodgates have been opened. And there are a lot of lawsuits going on at the moment. I believe there are 28 at least across the country with detransitioners seeking to hold these doctors accountable. So there are going to be more settlements. There are going to be more payouts. I believe so and hope so. These doctors need to be held accountable. I think some of them, or not even some of them, anybody who's been involved in this, we need to see people being locked up for this. We really do. Because this is just the most barbaric stage that, time in history that we're going to look back on. People need to be locked up for this. It's absolutely sick. So, yeah, that's the state of the situation. Good news about the Supreme Court. And the tide is definitely shifting. It's definitely turning in our favor. And more needs to be done, obviously. More needs to be done, but it's a start. Forcing insane people to accept this lie is pure insanity, exactly. And that's what it comes down to. For the longest time, people have been forced to buy into this, and many went along with it for an easier life, for lack of a better term. People went along with it because they thought, well, I don't want to be accused of being a bigot. I don't want to be incompassionate. When the whole time, what was incompassionate is forcing people to go along with a lie. What's incompassionate was lying to people, lying to children. And the schools are all too willing to do that, which is very disturbing. Yep, thank God. It's so terrifying to watch this in slow motion. It is terrifying. It really is. But we can be thankful that things are turning around now, for sure. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you guys. And Helen there is doing she's doing wonderful work. Sue them, sue all of them. Yep, absolutely. I just hope any detransitioner who's been put through this, his body's been damaged, even, with the hormones and all of that. If you haven't done the surgery, that's wonderful. But still, if people have been on hormones, people have suffered, mental anguish because they've been lied to, they need to seek compensation. They need to sue them. They need to get on board with what's going on now. So I really do hope we see more payouts. Let's see what else you guys are saying before we close. So another quick live just to share the good news with you guys. And there are some changes happening in other states as well. There's been bans on men going into women's bathrooms that I've seen recently in different states. So we're going to be hearing more and more changes occurring now. These people have all these fancy titles. They have all of these like high profile jobs, yet they can't tell the difference between a man and a woman. It's as simple as that. So thank you guys. Thanks for joining the live today. Thank you for all your comments. I'll catch up with you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves and have a great Tuesday.